Good afternoon, students. I wanted to give you some feedback and updates about the H-1B assignment on the discussion board because there were certain general trends that I wanted to point out. First of all, I am very, very honestly impressed with the quality of your work. And the quality of your responses and the quality of your comments. I think we had some very interesting discussions, and I hope that you learned something from them. Now, some confusion was coming from, I think, your failure to read the question carefully. And some of this confusion was actually good, because I liked the fact that we had an opportunity to discuss the visa waiver program versus B2 and change of status issues. I'll come back to that in the end of this video. But actually, the question stated very clearly that the person was here on a visa waiver. But again, it's good that we got to discuss the B2 visa as well. So we kind of got a little bit of an overview of week one. So with another thing is that I wanted to point out is that how you answer the questions. Some of you got very brief responses, and some of you wrote a lot. So basically, the only thing that gets graded is the answer to the specific question. So if I asked you for 10 questions, I looked only at your questions. That said, some of you got in a little bit of rationale why they asked these questions. That was really good. I liked that. I didn't specifically ask for it, but it was a great idea. But long discussions of visa waiver or some other things that were tangentially relevant. I don't mind, you can write as long as you want, but you don't get extra points for writing things that are not exactly relevant to the question asked. Okay, so now let me just give you an idea of what I had in mind, like the questions that I would ask Peter. I will give you more than 10. But and I didn't write it as a list of questions, so I'll just give you the idea of what I would ask him about. First of all, I would ask him about his own background. I would ask him does he have a degree and what kind of degree? I would ask him, where he graduated, whether it was a foreign university or an American university. Does he have a bachelor's or master's? I would make sure that I understand how many years of full-time education his degree transfers to, because not, all countries are different. So some countries have 3-year bachelor's degrees. That's always a problem for an H-1B. So the number of years is relevant, of course, major. And also I would ask him about his employment experience, especially if he has either no degree at all, or if his degree is in some other field, not computer science or nothing like that, but let's say maybe he has a degree in English literature, but then he worked for many years in computer industry. So I would get a sense of his experience, meaning number of years, nature of jobs, nature of positions, and then it would give me an opportunity to evaluate his background, whether it qualifies for education, experience in lieu of education for 3-for-1 rule. Then I would ask him whether he has a specific job offer in the United States. And some of you pointed out a very good idea is to ask whether his company, Makar Hart, actually has an affiliate or a related company in the United States, because that would be probably the easiest way to transition to America if he could work for the same company in the U.S. I would also ask him if he ever had an H-1B before. That's very relevant in terms of cap, because if he has H-1B, then maybe he would be cap exempt. I would also ask him about L1 or L visas in the past, because that could also affect the number of years that he has left that he could get on an H-1B. Some of you pointed out that we should ask him about J-1s in the past or some other immigration history issues. It's always a good idea to get a sense of your client's immigration history in general. Specifically to this question, I was looking more for H-1B and L questions, but all of these questions covering immigration history are relevant. I would, if he has a specific job offer, I would ask whether this employer is cap exempt or not, especially if Peter is not cap exempt by himself, through some of his prior H-1Bs. If there's no cap exemption, then I would ask him whether he would be willing to wait until October 1st, whether his employer would wait until October 1st next year, because most, especially now, now when we're would be like a year from now, so that would be a problem for an employer. If he has no specific job offer, I would ask him generally what kind of job he's looking for, in what field. If he would tell me that he wants to work as a plumber or if he wants to work as an artist, I would probably tell him about the difficulties with this choice given his background in computers. Some of you pointed out that, the question of licensing, in his field, in computer field, it's usually not relevant, but generally that's a correct answer for occupations that require a license. Again, if he has a job offer, specific job offer in mind, I would ask him, questions pointing to whether the proposed job would qualify for as a specialty occupation. What kind of job is that? What would be his duties? We had a discussion with Carl, I think pointed out that some computer occupations sometimes do not qualify for an H-1B. I pointed out that most computer programmers can get H-1Bs, but in the past we had some problems with entry-level computer programming positions. So it's always a good idea, if you have a basic entry-level computer programming H-1B, you may want to bolster it a little bit to maybe explain why it's more complicated and why it requires a bachelor's degree. I would also ask whether the employer is prepared to pay the prevailing wage. I would ask generally whether the employer is prepared to sponsor for an H-1B, because some companies just don't do it, period. And some companies might have had some difficulties in the past, may not be eligible for, may not be willing to go through that again. A relevant question is credentials of other employees in the same occupation as Peter would work for, because again, if all workers in that company only have associate degrees and no experience, then we could have problems down the line. I would not focus on discussing fees with Peter, because that's up to his employer to pay them. So that's not something that I would touch upon in an initial consultation, maybe in a very general terms that your employer would have to pay fees. And to be continued.